Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make juice in a blender. Now, remember, juicing is the method of extracting all of the liquid out of our fresh produce, our fruits and our vegetables. And the reason that we extract the liquid only is because when we consume the vibrant, nutrient-dense, living enzyme molecules from fresh plants, fruits, veggies, and roots and such, we get a rush of energy and all of that vibrant liquid nutrition without the wear and tear of having to digest the particles or the fiber from the solid parts of the food. This can be done very easily in your blender. We just use slightly different recipes because of the method that we're using. So I'm going to show you how to do that today in this video. Reasons that you might want to make juice in your blender as opposed to a juicer. Number one, maybe you don't have a juicer. So juicers are expensive and not everybody owns one. And it's certainly much less expensive to make juice at home in your own blender than it is to buy it out at a juice bar for lots of reasons. So this is a superior method over buying juice made someplace else. And maybe you have a juicer, but a part is broken or it's in the dishwasher. Maybe you feel like setting up the juicer and putting all the parts together and taking time to clean it all is going to be too time consuming for the moment that you're in and you just want to make a juice quick while you're on the run. Or maybe you'll try this method and discover that you love the way that it tastes and feels in your body and it'll become your favorite way to make juice. So whatever your reason, it's very simple. So let's get into it right now. So really quickly, let's go over the equipment that you'll need to make juice in a blender. Obviously, you'll need a blender, and truly, honestly, any blender will do. I just highly recommend that you have one that's large enough to hold about 64 ounces. There's great little blenders like a NutriBullet, and they're great for making like a 16-ounce smoothie or something like that. For this process, you want a little bit of space for the volume of the process because we are going to be adding water to our produce. You'll also need whatever tools to prep your produce if you haven't done that already. So that might be a peeler and a sharpened chef's knife, maybe a paring knife. You'll need the pitcher of water. So I've got 3.5 cups of fresh filtered cold water. And you're gonna need a strainer. This is a very fine mesh strainer basket. As you can see, it's quite small. You could use a larger one, but I recommend having a pretty fine mesh. That's gonna filter out all of the fiber and the solid parts of the food. And finally, you're gonna need a glass jar or some type of a receptacle to pour the juice into once we've strained it. So to demonstrate making juice in a blender, I have got a bowl of fresh spinach that I just picked from my garden. Yum. I've got, I'm gonna add 1 whole Fuji apple. I've got a nice chunk of ginger here. I've got some other items over in this basket. I think I'll add a little bit of celery to this juice. I've also got a cucumber that I peeled already, some fresh lemon, a little bit of orange, and this is a probiotic called spirulina. Spirulina is like an algae, and it's highly beneficial to the flora and fauna of our microbiome. So it's great gut cleansing additive. I'll include this recipe in a PDF along with this video, and it'll also include several other great combinations. What you can also do is take any of the juice recipes and imagine making them exactly how you would put them through the juicer, but adding water to them. You might find that you want to adjust slightly to enhance the flavor or increase the taste of a certain element once you start making juice in this method. So let's add some things to our blender. I'm gonna just chop up my apple into small quarters. I'm leaving the core and the seeds right in there because it's all gonna get blended out. And I'm adding the entire apple to the blender. I've got a couple of lemons in here. I'm gonna add the juice of 1 entire lemon into my pitcher because I want a lot of lemon in my juice. I'm hand squeezing this, as you can see, because we don't have a juicer. And you just want to give it your very best squeeze. It's good for strengthening your hand muscles as well. And then I've got another whole lemon here. I'm gonna add the entire lemon. So this is gonna be a very lemony juice, which is great. Lots of citrus, very alkalizing. I'm also gonna squeeze the rest of this orange that I had laying around. So once I squeeze out the juice, I'm just gonna drop the whole orange right in there. Then I've got 3/4 of a cucumber here. I'm gonna chop it into some smaller chunks and pop those right in the blender. And then my ginger, that's a really large chunk, I'm gonna just cut that in half. With the ginger, I want to chop this up a little bit finer because I wanna make sure that it gets thoroughly blended into the juice. And sometimes when you have smaller particles and smaller chunks and something as rigid as a piece of ginger, it could get tossed around in the blender and miss the blades a little bit. So giving it a little bit of a chop and tossing in the pieces of your ginger slightly chopped up will ensure that you get more of that ginger into the blend. And as you can see, those are just some large chunks right in there. And then I'm gonna add my spinach. I'm not gonna chop this up at all. I don't need to because the blender will do that for me. Tossing it right down in there. I'm using, I would say, roughly 1 cup of my dark leafy green. You could use kale, you could use romaine, you could use any, arugula would be great in this if you like bitter greens. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of my spirulina, and I'm just gonna, a little bit of this goes a very long way. So I'm just gonna literally, this is a 1 teaspoon scoop, I'm gonna do about half. So if you can see that right there, that's about a half of a teaspoon of spirulina. I'm tossing it right in there. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of turmeric to this juice because I want the anti-inflammatory. So I'm doing about just under a teaspoon of turmeric in the pitcher. And then the last thing I'm going to do is pour my water over the top of the entire mixture. So as you can see, that filled my blender all the way. The water line is right there. Next thing we're gonna do is blend. Okay, so I let that blend for about 60 seconds to 120 seconds. I'd say 2 to 3 minutes would be the most. You really don't want it to blend that long because you don't want the motor to heat up too much and then destroy some of the enzymes. So once your juice is blended and your produce is all blended, here comes the fun part. I'm starting out with a large size strainer because I want to illustrate the process and it'll go a lot faster, but I'm going to move to a fine mesh strainer before I'm done. So I put my strainer over my large pitcher and you guessed it, pour away. You might find that it gets a little bit clogged and you can sort of tilt the basket left and right. Make sure that you're getting all of the good, delicious, juicy liquid out of there. And you can even use a spoon to kind of move it around, clear away some of the fiber that's getting caught in the basket so that you make sure you get all of that juice out. So I could then pour this into a fine mesh strainer. Look at that. Amazing. And then you can press down on your fine mesh strainer and make sure that you're getting all the liquid out. And then I would just go ahead and repeat that step with the rest of my juice until all of it has been filtered through this fine mesh strainer. You could do this process once or twice, filtering it through the strainer, making sure that you get out all the excess fiber and juice pulp, and then run that through your fine mesh strainer to really get out the rest of the debris and pulp. And then when you're all done straining most of the pulp out, You can use your fine mesh strainer again to get the very last of it out as you filter this into your jar. Now, you can taste your juice and then decide if it's sweet enough, if it's sour enough, if it's missing something. You can certainly add maple syrup or honey to one of these blended juices to give it a little bit more sweetness. I like to add apple or orange to get the fructose from fresh fruit. And there you have it. Juice made in a blender. Smells delicious. I'm going to try it. Oh, it's so good. I hope you try this method of making juice. Just to have options, and make sure you download the PDF that accompanies this video with some different recipes that you can try. Ciao for now. I'll see you in the next video.